Casting in English on shortwave and real audio online at www.radiohc.cu.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Radio Havana Cuba's English language broadcast for this Friday, October the 30th. Mostly sunny skies, a hot day here in the Cuban capital. I'm Ed Newman. With me here in the studio, we have Lena Valverde and Derwin Jones. The three of us. Wait a minute, let me see. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's 3. We invite you to stay with us. We'll have news from Cuba and around the world. We'll have our main feature for today. It's the Caribbean Outlook Show in the second half hour of our program. On a day like today, but in 1910, Spanish poet Miguel Hernandez was born. A well-known author and playwright, Miguel Hernandez was an important part of the vanguard movement in Spain and joined a generation of socially conscious Spanish authors concerned with workers' rights. A member of the Communist Party of Spain, Hernandez campaigned for the Republic during the Spanish Civil War. He was arrested for a number of times after the war for his anti-fascist activities and was eventually sentenced to death. His death sentence, however, was commuted to a prison term of 30 years, leading to incarceration under extraordinarily harsh conditions. He died in prison of tuberculosis at the age of 32 in 1942. Miguel Hernandez commemorating his 105th anniversary of his birth today. And on this date in history, in the year 1950, the prestigious musician and founder of Cuban radio, Luis Casas Romero, died in Havana. The renowned composer and flautist, Casas Romero was born in Camagüey in 1882. He studied music. He was a director and composer, but is perhaps best known as the founder of radio here in Cuba. In 1922, he put Dos LC on the air. He's the owner of COC and the first shortwave radio station here in Cuba. Casas Romero, Luis Casas Romero, died on this date in 1950 at the age of 68. And on a day like today, but in the year 2000, Cuban revolution leader Fidel Castro and the late Venezuelan president Hugo Chavez signed an historic cooperation agreement covering a wide range of collaboration programs between the two countries. The Integral Cooperation Agreement between Cuba and Venezuela celebrating its 15th birthday today. Let's go over now to the news desk, find out what's happening today in our national and international news. We're joined by Lena and Gavin. First, let's take a look at our headlines for this hour.
Cuban President Castro to pay state visit to Mexico next week.
Cuban Deputy Foreign Minister meets with U.S. Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security.
Hawaiian farmers march in Asunción to demand President's resignation.
Israeli troops kill 2 Palestinians in Nablus. And now the news in detail.
Cuban President Castro will pay a state visit to Mexico from November 5th through the 7th. This according to a statement issued by the Mexican government. According to Prensa News Agency, Mexico's Foreign Affairs Office announced that the Cuban head of state and his spouse, President Enrique Peña Nieto, will meet in Mérida, capital city of Yucatan State, next week. The two presidents will consider bilateral and regional issues related to the political, economic, and cooperation areas, according to the official statement, which notes that Raúl Castro's visit has special significance since it will take place amid historic bilateral relations currently at an excellent stage. Cuba and Mexico have shared uninterrupted diplomatic relations for the past 113 years, while Mexico is Cuba's third major commercial partner in Latin America and the 7th major source of tourists to the island.
Visiting U.S. Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, held talks on Thursday with Cuba's first Deputy Foreign Minister, Marcelino Medina, at the headquarters of the Cuban Foreign Ministry in Havana. The two government officials addressed U.S.-Cuba relations and the possibilities of expanding cooperation on issues of mutual interest as part of the ongoing process towards the normalization of relations between the two countries.
According to the website of the Cuban Foreign Ministry, Alejandro Mayorkas was accompanied by Charge d'Affaires at the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Jeffrey Delontes, and Commissioner for Customs and Border Protection, R. Gil Kelby-Woski, and other officials from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. On the Cuban side was Josefina Vidal, General Director for the United States at the Foreign Ministry, and other Cuban officials.
Hundreds of Paraguayan farmers from across the country launched a march in Asunción on Thursday to demand the resignation of President Horacio Cartes and protest policies that contribute to poor living conditions in rural areas. The march comes as the latest in a series of farmers' mobilizations this year, including an 8,000-strong march on the capital in February to demand that President Cartes either introduce major reforms or resign. According to a statement from the National Farmers Federation, the movement protests all of the policies driven by the government of Horacio Cartes, which deepen more and more the state violence and repression against poor farmers instead of delivering on the needs of the people and boosting community development.
Israeli forces have shot and killed two Palestinians in the West Bank city of Nablus after accusing them of staging stabbing attacks. The two Palestinians were shot and killed by Israeli troops at the Za'atara military checkpoint in southern Nablus on Friday. Israeli forces claim that the two Palestinians, who were riding a motorcycle, attempted to stab Israeli soldiers. The latest death brings to 70 the total number of Palestinians killed since the beginning of this month. Some 7,200 others have been injured. Tensions in the occupied territories have dramatically escalated in recent weeks, prompting many to believe that a third intifada is underway.
And you've tuned to the news here on Radio Havana, Cuba for this Friday. Thanks for starting off your weekend by tuning in to the international shortwave radio frequencies of RHC, Radio Havana, Cuba. We're also on the FM dial if you're here in Havana. Try picking us up at 102.5 FM. Let's go back now to the news. Here's Lynn about it.
Live Roki, Regional Technical Advisor for Biodiversity and Ecosystems of the United Nations Development Program, the UNDP, has praised Cuba's actions in preserving the environment. During a meeting with members of the Havana Camagüey Project, the UN official highlighted the active participation of communities, local governments, scientific institutions, and government organizations in the implementation of a national strategy to reduce socio-economic and natural vulnerabilities caused by climate change. He pointed out that the results contributed by this project, financed by the Global Environment Fund in its 2 decades of work, can be replicated in other nations of the area that have similar problems.
Michigan State University has announced that medical students of that higher education center will be able to complete part of their curriculum in Cuban hospitals as of April 2016. According to the announcement on the website of the university, following the reestablishment of diplomatic relations between Washington and Havana, Michigan State University was the first to reach an agreement with Cuban authorities to develop a new course for U.S. students, which will count as part of their academic curriculum, International News Agency reported. In Cuba, Michigan State University students will be able to do their practice at the Calixto Garcia General Hospital, a medical training institution in Havana, or at the Ramon Gonzalez Curro Hospital, specialized in obstetrics and gynecology, according to the information. William Cunningham of the Faculty of Medicine at Michigan State University said that this will be the first time that U.S. medical students will be able to develop skills in the main hospitals of Havana and get credit for their experience.
The Army unit of Iguala in the Mexican state of Guerrero has been accused of working with the Guerreros Unidos United Warriors drug cartel that is allegedly responsible for disappearing the 43 Ayotzinapa students in complicity with local police, La Jornada reported on Thursday. The municipal commissioner for the Carrizalillo community in Guerrero, Nelson Figueroa, told the newspaper that because nobody in the region trusts the Army or the federal police, they will ask the federal government to implement roadblocks in the area to discourage federal security forces from engaging in illegal activities. Figueroa said that they have confirmed without a doubt that the Mexican Army, federal police, and local authorities in Chilpancingo, the capital of the violent state of Guerrero, are working in complicity with Guerreros Unidos, who have recently been accused of smuggling huge shipments of heroin and cocaine in masses into the United States.
China has warned the United States Navy against any violation of its territorial waters, saying that it will take necessary measures in reaction to U.S. incursions off the disputed islands in the South China Sea. We would urge the U.S. not to continue down the wrong path, but if the U.S. side does continue, we will take all necessary measures according to the need, Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman Colonel Yang Yuhun said in a statement released on Thursday. Yang further described as rock solid Beijing's resolve to protect its national sovereignty and security interests. The statement was published one day after the guided missile destroyer USS Lassen sailed within 12 nautical miles of one of the artificial islands in the South China Sea. In response, China summoned Max Baucus, the U.S. ambassador to Beijing, to protest against the U.S. ship patrol in the vicinity of the Chinese artificial islands and urged Washington to refrain from such actions.
And those are some of the stories we're following for you this hour here on Radio Havana, Cuba. Let's take a look once again at our headlines.
Cuban President Raul Castro to pay state visit to Mexico next week.
Cuban Deputy Foreign Minister meets with U.S. Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security.
Hawaiian farmers march in Asunción to demand President's resignation.
Israeli troops killed 2 Palestinians in Nablus.
Thanks, Lena and Gerwin. It's about 13 minutes past the hour, and you turn to Radio Havana, Cuba. Thanks for joining us here on RHC. Don't forget we're streaming real audio on live on our website. Just go to www.radiohc.com. That's real audio on the line here on our website, www.radiohc.com. Time now for our commentary viewpoint. Here is Gedwin Jones. Go.
During the month of October, tensions have mounted in Israel and Palestine, raising the Palestinian death toll to at least 56 and the Israeli death toll to 11. On Monday of this week, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini called for concrete steps to be taken to resume the peace process. Now an international quartet made up of the US, the EU, Russia, and UN have been tasked with restarting a peace process. Another peace process. Is there any reason to think that this process will solidify in any meaningful way? Thousands of Palestinians protested in the West Bank on Tuesday, demanding that Israeli authorities hand over the bodies of 17 Palestinians recently killed by Israeli troops. Protesters were met with force by Israeli security, leaving 143 people wounded. The idea that the so-called peace process can be revived is utterly delusional. These are the activities of politicians from the EU, from the US, and elsewhere, who have no guts and no political will to confront the real problem. And that problem is Israel. This is not an Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is not a Palestinian problem. It is an Israeli problem. What are needed are concrete steps on the ground that can improve the life of the Palestinian people, that can strengthen the Palestinian Authority, not only in the economic field, but also in security and in the political field. Everybody knows that Israeli occupation, colonization, war crimes, apartheid, these are the problems. Why not end the occupation? Give the Palestinians their rights. Stop stealing their land. Stop killing their children. Stop imprisoning them. Who will actually make these kinds of statements, taking a more aggressive, assertive stance, and be able to negotiate a more peaceful situation for the Palestinians? It's not going to come from the likes of John Kerry or the EU or Barack Obama, who has been entirely complicit. The administration is rushing to try to pass through an aid package to increase Israel's military aid to kill Palestinians and steal their land for an extra $1 billion a year. That's what the Obama administration is trying to do. It's because of this complicity, this failure to hold Israel accountable, this willful participation in its crimes by the so-called international community, that Palestinians are once again rising up and taking matters into their own hands with the very limited means that they have, sacrificing their lives to make the statement that we desire to be free. We desire to be free. We desire to be liberated from this ugly colonial apartheid regime. Palestinians have called for an international arms embargo on Israel. They're calling for boycott, divestment, sanctions, and Palestinians in the streets, in their refugee camps, in their fields, are taking up stones, are demonstrating. Sometimes they're even attacking heavily armed Israeli occupation soldiers. Hundreds of UK academics have put out a statement this week calling for the boycott of Israel and the institutions in Israel and around the world that make this horror possible and perpetuated. Is this too destined to fall on deaf ears? I'm Havana Cuba. This has been a commentary by Ghetto Enjoy. Cuba is constantly besieged by tropical storms and hurricanes.
Cuban people, led by our Civil Defense Agency, must always be prepared to face these natural phenomena. Hurricane season, from June 1st to November 30th. Stay alert, stay safe. About 18 minutes past the hour, you tune to Radio Havana, Cuba. Thanks for joining us here on this flight. As we mentioned earlier, today marks the 15th anniversary of the historic collaboration agreement between Cuba and Venezuela. With more, here's Maria Luisa.
Thanks, Ed. The Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade of Cuba, Roberto Lopez, said in Caracas that the comprehensive cooperation agreement between the Caribbean nation and Venezuela turns 15 years old on Friday, with positive results in sectors such as health, education, sports, and culture. Lopez spoke during the 10th work meeting of the technical secretaries of both countries in the Venezuelan capital earlier this week. He noted that bilateral relations and solidarity must be marked by efficiency, quality, and impact.
Además de permitirnos un control preciso, exacto, de cómo va cada uno de los proyectos.
Besides presenting a precise control of how each project works, demanding efficient completion, requiring compliance with the agreement, it also allows to fraternize and exchange, to interrelate as only one team, to begin the year 2016 with a project that has all the possibilities of working out, that has the necessary impact that the Venezuelan and Cuban people deserve.
The technical secretary of the agreement for Venezuela, Gordil Ramon, talked about the relaunching of projects, 60% of which correspond to 2014 and 2015, and the importance of these institutions here today.
Hemos logrado una racionalización importante en el avance de muchos proyectos.
We have achieved a major rationalization in the progress of many projects that were presenting structural delays, affecting effectiveness, affecting cost, even affecting the quality of the research. We have 176 open projects, and we have reduced them to 125 projects, which are those still running.
Since last Monday, delegations from Cuba and Venezuela have reviewed the plans for collaboration outlining the guidelines of the cooperation program to carry out next year in order to maintain those that provide greater economic and social benefits to the two peoples. You've been listening to the words of the Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade of Cuba, Roberto Lopez, and of the Technical Secretary of the Agreement for Venezuela, Gordil Ramon, during the celebration of the 15th anniversary of the cooperation agreement between Cuba and Venezuela. For Radio Havana Cuba, this is Maria Luisa Hayes.
Thanks, Maria Luisa.
Maria Luisa report here on Radio Havana. It's about 21 minutes past the hour. Time now for our news
With our sports report, it's Ivan Martinez. Ivan?
Thank you. Cuba's Omar Duran smashed her own 100-meter T12 world record in style. She was one of the three athletes on Wednesday to seal a hat-trick of titles at the 2015 IPC Athletics World Championships in Doha, Qatar. The Cuban sprinter was joined by China's Eugene Liu and Tunisia's Walid Hila in winning their third gold medal. The 23-year-old Cuban, who broke the 200-meter world records earlier in the week to land gold, cruised to the win over the shorter sprint in 11.48 seconds, 0.17 faster than her previous best set at August Pan American Games in Toronto. I have won 3 gold medals. I am the happiest in the world. 3 is the magic number. But one. He was Lionel Sabon Pineda had been in the terrific form in Doha. It was double gold for the Cuban athlete, who added the 200-meter T12 title to his 100-meter win on Friday. The 26-year-old made light of the stellar field as he stormed home to take gold with the new American record to 22.14. South African Jonathan Tutu and Russian Fedor Trikolic took silver and bronze respectively. Here's what Lionel Sabon Pineda had to say at the end of his event on Thursday. I'm so very happy with the result. I thought the race was supposed to be tomorrow and not today, so it was a bit of a shock. But I was ready. I have qualified for Rio. I just can't wait back out there and compete again. Ginebra Castillo qualifies for the women's 100-meter T47 finals taking place on Friday. Havana Cuba comes in 9th place with 7 gold medals and 2 silvers. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, is hosting the 5th session of the International Convention Against Doping in Sport at its headquarters in Paris, with the theme of educating young athletes about the danger of using prohibited substances. Prevention is better than cure, said UNESCO Director General Irina Bokova, stressing that while a great deal has been achieved in the last decade, advocacy work must continue to educate and enforce towards fulfilling the shared ambition of eradicating doping from sport worldwide. The only possible way to fight doping effectively is through education, she said in a statement at the two-day event on October the 29th to the 30th. More than 250 representatives of government and the sporting industry discussed anti-doping challenges over the two-day conference, in line with the International Convention Against Doping in Sport, at a time of increasing concern about the use of performance-enhancing drugs. The convention, which was adopted in 2005, is based on the World Anti-Doping Code, where states commit to strict trafficking in doping substances, apply common practices to counter its use by athletes in competitions, improve detection techniques, and support education. UNESCO, which also administers a $1.8 million fund for the elimination of doping in sport, said in a press release that the use of performance-enhancing substances not only cause serious health problems, but also undermine fairness and ethics in sport. The fund, which was set up in 2008, aims to help countries enforce the convention and strengthen anti-doping capacity and educate about the dangers of doping. UNESCO's partners at the convention include the World Anti-Doping Agency, the International Olympic Committee, the International Paralympic Committee, the Council of Europe, and Interpol. UNESCO is working with the Brazilian Anti-Doping Authority ahead of the 2016 Olympics and Paralympic Games in Rio in order to strengthen its fight against doping in sport through education, prevention and testing, and to preserve the beauty of the high-performance competition. From Radio Havana Cuba, I'm Ivan Martinez.
Thanks, Ivan Martinez with our sports report. Time out. Time now for some great Cuban music. Here's the group Ana Kauna and Bailando con Otro.
Oye, ahora que se fue de la fiesta y me dejaron sola, me voy bailando con otro al compás de ahora. Bailando con otro y yo, bailando con otro. Bailando con otro y yo, con la mulatona del sabor. Si lo agarro bailando con otra, está pillado y no le digo nada. Si me agarra bailando con otra, seguir bailando toda la es la mejor medida para no ser celosa, para vivir la vida, así es como se goza. Y si él duerme la mañana, yo dormiré el día entero, porque si él es caballero, yo sigo siendo la dama. Y a mucha honra. Fue por eso que Perucho se busca como se puso. Voy a salir a bailar toda la noche y hasta que salga el sol no voy a regresar. Ay, déjame seguir andando. Ahora la buena soy yo, la reina soy yo. Sé que me quieres tener con el paño en la cabeza, como Teresa. Se acabó, se acabó. Se vaya.
Cuban music on Radio Havana, Cuba. That's the group Anacaona and Bailando con Otro. And you tuned to Radio Havana. Thanks for joining us on this sunny Friday here in the Cuban capital. Time now for our news bulletin. Afterwards, we'll listen to the Caribbean Outlook Show, a regular Friday feature here on RHC. But first, over to the news with Lena and Kevin.
The governments of Cuba and Venezuela presented Friday in Caracas the bilateral cooperation plan through 2030, a continuation of the comprehensive program signed 15 years